an institutional strengthening specialist with the Caribbean Center for Development Administration. And this topic, our webinar topic today is public sector transformation. And we're looking at lessons from the Caribbean. But before we get into that, as usual, we want to remind everyone what we need to do to have the best virtual learning experience. I see that we have some of our current transformational leadership development participants with us. Welcome. And there's some alumni with us, and they might be like, oh my goodness, does Lloyd have to say this all the time? Yes, repetition becomes habit, because we want to ensure that we have the best possible virtual learning experience. So yes, close all your software applications apart from WebEx, mute your various phones that are around you, remind your colleagues that you are unavailable for this next hour and 15 minutes. And if you have an internet cable, it is best to plug that in. It allows for better Wi-Fi internet connectivity. And if you do have a good working headset and microphone, to please use that as well. So we want to ensure that we have the best possible virtual learning experience. I'm going to ask you to just hold a minute for me, please. Yes, sorry about that. So we want to also make this a webinar in which you can interact with the facilitators, with each other. And so we just want to point out a few of the feedback tools that we have. When the time comes for questions and answers and discussion, we have a raise hand feature. So if you are joining using a laptop or a desktop, you will see the list of names to the right of your screen, and below that you'll see a toolbar. And to the far left of the toolbar, you'll see the raise hand feature. So when we come to ask and invite questions and comments, you can click on that and we will see your hand in the order it was raised and we will acknowledge you. Right beside that is a green check mark. And so that green check mark allows you to respond if you say yes. So for instance, it's like some corny, but are you alive today? You can click the green check mark so that we see your yeses. And right beside the green check mark is the red X. And so suppose you're saying, I'm tired of, let me see, I'm here twisting my words. But suppose their response is no. Suppose they say, are you feeling great again? And your answer is no. Unfortunately, I hope that is not true. But if you have found the red X, you can just check on that, just click on it so that we know that you have found it. And to remove any of these, whether it is a raise hand, green check mark, or the red X, you simply click on it again and it will go away. And last but certainly not least right now, we want to invite you to note the chat feature. So just below the toolbar, you will see the chat feature. And so we invite you to click send to all participants, and then we will see that. So if you have found the chat feature, you can just send us a good morning. I am typing a good morning in it. And you just click on send, and we'll see that. I'm seeing all those good mornings from Joya and Nicholas. Great. From Deborah. Fantastic. He's from Stimbra as well. The other tool I want to show you is a pointer tool. And so if you're joining using a desktop or a laptop, above the slide, you'll see another toolbar. And starting at the far left, you'll see a right-facing arrow. And so if you click on it, your cursor becomes a right-facing arrow. You can drag and drop it anywhere you wish. You'll notice you'll see my right-facing arrow pointing at annotation tools. Now, if you have joined using a mobile device, you may not see that, but I'm going to invite you, if you can find the pointer tool, just to point from, where are you joining from? What country are you joining from? And if you can't use the pointer tool, do try to type it in the chat. So Marjorie and I know a few others are joining from Jamaica. Fantastic. From Barbados. From Trinidad. from St. Lucia. I'm seeing Patricia saying that there. Fantastic. I see Ione from Trinidad, from St. Kitts, sorry. Dr. Lunde Richards. Hi, Lunde from Cayman. A few from Grenada, Antigua. Simra, I think Simra, you're joining from Lord of Mercy. I always mix up the overseas territories flags. Simra, you have to help me out. BVI, thank you, Simra. The Shine is joining from Guyana. And I see Rosalind from Tortola amongst the BVI. Raj from Suriname. Ay, ay, ay. No, man, real Caribbean affair here. Thank you all so much for joining us today. So, the big topic of today is public sector transformation. And this is a topic that has been with us for a number of years. And so this is why we're kind of taking a step back and looking at what are the lessons we have learned about this topic over these many years of engaging in it in different forms and shapes and with different levels of energy over maybe the past 2 decades or so throughout the Caribbean. And so I am curious to hear from you guys. What do you consider to be the biggest challenge in transforming Caribbean public services? And truth be told, we could extend that to talk about our regional institutions as well. What do you think is the biggest challenge to transformation? And Joyanne says mindset. I agree, Joyanne. You know, we can change systems and we're putting new IT systems and all of that, but the mindset has to change as well, or else people revert to their old way of doing things. Simra, talk about acceptance of the change, yes. And that's also aligned with the whole business of the mindset. Part of that mindset change has to also be acceptance. Abigail says, yes, political will. Oh, yes. Oh, yes. We have to have the will to change, you know, and the power brokers in the mix have to be on board to let the change happen. Giselle says, the bureaucracy. Yes. Nicholas says, lack of vision. Yeah, we have to be able to see what is possible. That transformation is possible. Have that vision for it and then work towards the achievement of that vision. Deborah says, culture. Oh, yes. And that's also right there, that's business of the mindset. That's the mindset shift that has to happen, right? You have to change the culture. Because Peter Drucker, who was credited with this phrase, culture eats strategy for breakfast. So that way of how we do things every day, and we're so accustomed to doing it, that can be a hindrance to transformation. Mary says, political interference. No. There's a name here that I must confess, I do not know how to pronounce. It starts with A and then with O. But this wonderful person says the Constitution. And I would probably broaden that to talk about the legal framework that we work within. Yes, that has to change in many times in order for transformation to take place. Giselle says, talk about micromanagement. Yeah. And I think that also speaks to culture and the mindset shift, and Rosalind refers to that as well. Raj says the fear of the unknown. Yes, we talk about this wonderful vision. It's not known. We're talking about a future state that we don't know, and people tend naturally in our human state to fear the unknown. Fiona also talks about political will. Daniela talks about political interference. Ione, I like this one, Ione. Ione says implementation of policies. Oh, yes. It is often said, unfortunately, about the Caribbean that we suffer from implementation deficit disorder, IDD. We have lovely documents, lovely policies, lots of wonderful research, but implementation, that is what is going to make transformation actually happen, and sometimes we are lacking in that area. Norma says, resistance to change and complacency. Yeah. You ever hear that phrase, if it ain't broke, don't fix it? Yes, that is complacency. And that is a challenge to transformation. And put another way, according to Olivia, systemic inertia. Simra, lack of understanding for the reasons of the change. And that's why it's so important that we communicate the why. People have to understand the why are we changing. What will happen if we don't change? People have to understand the why for them to buy in. Isabel talks about the lack of preparation for the change management, yes. And I can honestly tell you from my own experience working in the public services over these years that the lack of adequate change management has been a major stumbling block to transformation. I have been guilty of it myself, if I'm honest, in the past. And maybe because of lack of knowledge, Nicholas, we've always done it that way. Yes, the complacency. If it ain't broke, don't fix it mentality. Lundy says lack of continuity when government changes. Yes. And so when we talk about political will, we're also talking about political will and a kind of unity of purpose about some transformation objectives that we need to have as a country. And not just something that is limited to a particular political term. Andrew says inadequate data collection and analysis, a lack of data-driven decision-making. Oh, yes. Transformation can't stick if it's just based on a little whim and fancy and just a mere opinion. It has to be rooted in data that is driving better decision-making. Carly says understanding the why and the need for the change. I agree. Joanne says in some cases financial constraints. No, we can't underrate that. It takes cash to care. That's another mantra that you probably have heard. But I also put it to you that sometimes too much finances doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to get the transformation. Because just merely having the fiscal resources is not enough. You have to have the mindset shift, the vision, the dealing with the resistance to the change, all of that, even with financial resources. In fact, sometimes when you have too much resources, you think all is well. So a tax department can say, but we're meeting our tax target. Why do we need to reform? What is transformation about? We are doing what we need to do. Not another side of it. Nicholas also talked about lack of change management, the ability to adapt to change, Yolanda says. Patricia, digital strategies. Yes. And so the digital strategies, they can either enable transformation, and sometimes they're not done properly, they can become a stumbling block because, we can digitize bad processes, yeah? Esther, unclear objectives. You're quite right. What are we need to be very clear. What are we transforming? Why are we transforming? What's the direction in which we're going? Indeed. I want to thank you all so much. Fiona says, on the change management, she wants to highlight clear consultation and sensitization techniques. And Tamara Wright-Brown adds to that open communication. Yes, you are quite right. Very critical to effective change management is clarity of communication and consultation, and that is what builds the kind of cohesiveness that Yolanda has just pointed out that is needed. Arlene, I see that lack of collaboration between political and public service leadership. Yes, sometimes we are on one timetable and the politician is on another timetable. Tanika says lack of clear understanding of respective roles in the process. Oh yes, so we start to have all kinds of infighting and people think they're stepping over each other and it creates confusion and division. Shireen talks about respect for authority and due process. Indeed, so all of these things are, Nicholas says fiefdoms. Oh yes, people protecting turf. So important. So all of these things are some of the challenges of transformation. And guess what? Transformation is challenging. Without a doubt it is. But guess what? There are many examples of transformation that has worked, that has been effective, that has been sustainable. And so for today's webinar, we are looking at what are the lessons that we have learned. Because you kind of highlighted some of the don'ts. These are some of the things we have learned. These are the things that they do not do if you want to have transformation. But we're also going to be talking today, what are some of the do's? And this topic is near and dear to us because CARICAD, which was founded 41 years ago, was really designed to serve its member states in this area of public sector reform and transformation. And it has had many changes over the years. Sometimes some of you use reform unit, transformation unit, change. It's really about how do we create and constantly improve our public services to transform not just the public services of the Caribbean, but transforming it for the people of the Caribbean. And so, given that main agenda for CARICAD, we developed a Caribbean Public Service Charter. And that really was to create a template and a model for all of our public services in our member states to utilize as a common resource, as it were, to organize their various transformation initiatives. And so this public service charter, what you see on the slide here, it governs all of the work that we do in CARICAD. And it is based on the fact that we are aiming to have a citizen-centered public service, after all. And like any good house that you're building, it also has to have a foundation, that's a citizen-oriented public service, but it also has to have pillars. And so there are 6 pillars in this charter: governance, standards, capacity, legislation, openness, and of course accountability. And we're hoping that eventually by implementing transformation activities around these pillars, that we would get our public services that are responsive, results-oriented, resilient, and sustainable. And you can check our website, caricad.net, for more details on this, but this slide just simply breaks down what are the sub-themes under each of the 6 pillars. Now, in keeping with our work around public sector transformation, we, a couple years ago, pulled together some of our member states that have really been involved in public sector transformation, including Jamaica. And I say including Jamaica, it is not just Jamaica alone, but our main guest for today is from Jamaica. And so we benefited from the work that she has been doing along with her team, and some of her team members are present here. But we looked at what we're doing in the Caribbean around transformation. And we also looked at best practices from outside of the Caribbean, from places like New Zealand, Australia, the UK, Canada, and other countries around the world. Because we were saying, okay, we know, and you know, because you have said it, all the things that can go wrong with transformation, all the stumbling blocks we can have. But we started to say, well, what makes transformation work? And so with that, we came up with a schema for public sector transformation. And not to worry, we are going to email this to you. Now, this slide, I will not lie to you. Let me show you what it looks like in totality, and then I'm going to break it down to you. So this is what it looks like. This is a schema for implementation of public sector transformation. And I'm not going to lie to you, this is a daunting diagram. But the aim here is not to say you're going to do all of this all at once. It really sets out in a lot of detail what is the roadmap that you need to follow in order for you to have effective and sustainable public sector transformation. So I'm going to bring up this same slide, but in a bigger document, and to just share it with you. So what is it that we have found? We have found that if there is a national vision for the development of the country, it helps. Because what it then does, and particularly if you have bipartisan, that's important, you know, all the political parties buy into and sign on to that country vision, is that it allows for continuity even if there is a change of a political administration. Now, we also know that many countries don't necessarily have a very clearly defined, articulated country vision. But particularly, you can start to look at things like what are the policy objectives that are articulated in things like your throne speeches, etc. This kind of gives you a good indication of what is the main policy directive that we're after. And we also recognize that in the region, well, we are part of CARICOM, and so we also have the CARICOM strategic vision. And more globally, We have signed on to the Sustainable Development Goals. So all of those things feed into that. It's also important to see, okay, there's a national vision, yes, but what is the role for the public sector in particular? All right? And when we talk about the roles of the public sector, you are talking about not only in terms of the functional areas, but also what are the ethical foundations of the public sector. And here is where we see that our charter for the public services that I mentioned earlier could help us to define that, all right? Those 6 pillars are very important. And so once we talk about, we get from the national vision, it comes down to maybe more pointedly, what is the vision for transformation itself? And what is then the commitment level to transformation? That's very important. Many of you talked about political will. What is the level of commitment that you have to transformation? Once we have that commitment, then it has to be articulated into some sort of policy directive. You can't just have little speeches here, little speeches there. You have to have a coherent policy position on transformation, which then informs what is your strategy for transformation. And then once you have the strategy, then it gets broken down into an action plan. What specifically are we doing? Say transformation education, or in the health sector, or as it relates to social service delivery. And then that breaks down into specific programs and projects. And of course, if you're going to have programs and projects, then there are teams that you have to pull together to execute. What are the various roles and responsibilities that are going to be have to be put in place, and how they get them to coordinate as well? So it's about the teamwork and about the leadership that has to go into making these things practically work. And of course, everything's broken down to activities and tasks. We might be then talking about how are we changing procedures or processes or systems. We like this one about enabling environment, and that is really what are those things that we need, systems and maybe policies. What are those things that enable the transformation to be informed by good decision making? So to give an example, one of the things that we have found in our research is having a good permanent secretaries committee that's working effectively, working collaboratively, working strategically on those whole of government cross-cutting issues. That is a very critical factor in creating that enabling environment for transformation. And of course, at the end of the day, we expect the transformation will deliver new transformed products and services for our citizens and clients, and will result in sustainable positive changes in the public services that, of course, we'll be monitoring and evaluating. And of course, it will result in resilient, sustainable development. So I like to think of this diagram as an elephant. You think, how do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time. And so we offer this as a roadmap that you can consistently work through to guide your design, stop and think, okay, where are we at in terms of our checkpoints? What's missing? How do we close the gaps to ensure that we are really covering all the necessary bases for successful transformation? So with that, my friends, I am going to invite Mrs. Marjorie Johnson. Marjorie is the Chief Technical Director in the Public Sector Transformation and Modernization Division in the Office of the Cabinet in Jamaica. You see that young face of hers? Look here now, don't let that fool you. She is young at heart, young in looks, but her career spans upwards of 25 years in this era of transformation, providing innovative and transformative solutions in IT, project management, change management, and strategic management. Her achievements have been outstanding, and they are many. And let me just mention a few that she has spearheaded. The launch of the one-stop shop for business registration in Jamaica, the development of the blueprint for the government of Jamaica ICT transformation, implementation of the e-procurement system, and there are others, trust me. So I invited Marjorie to come today to just to share from the Jamaican experience what has been just some of the ups and the downs and the highlights and the lows, so that we can learn together the lessons from the Jamaican experience in public sector transformation. So Marjorie, I am passing the ball to you. And we are going to have, just allow her to present, and then at the end, we will take your questions and your comments, and you can also put those in the chat as well. Marjorie.
Good morning, all. Thank you, Dr. Parks, and good morning, my fellow Caribbean. I'm so proud, Caribbean colleagues. I'm so happy to be with you, to share with you the Jamaican experience with transformation. I trust the sharing will be beneficial to you all and assist you in your own transformation journey. I also have two colleagues with me who will assist with sharing and answering your questions if there are any at the end. They are Wayne Thompson and Carleen Mackenzie Spencer. Both are Principal Director in the Office of the Cabinet who works on the Transformation Project and also have extensive experience leading transformation initiatives. I shall share with you this morning a brief summary of Jamaica's transformation journey today before I start, and some of the key tenets for a successful transformation based on our experience. Dr. Parks, I'm not getting control of the screen.
Just try again, because you do have the ball.
Right, it's not allowing me to. It's not allowing me to proceed.
Can you pass the ball to me?
It's not allowing me to proceed. I don't know why.
Yeah, and just ask Raphael to pass the ball to me. All right, let me see. Okay, I'm not sure why it's not doing, but I'll control it. Just go ahead, Marjorie.
Okay. Okay. All right. The Jamaica, as many of you know, we have undertaken many transformation and modernization initiatives over the years since our independence. But I would like to say that we formally commenced the journey in 1996, went through a World Bank project called the Public Sector Transformation and Public Sector Modernization Project. The government established a project and which is to brought about improvements in the quality of the service provided by public sector agencies and really improve the operations of the ministries. So that started our journey, formal journey in 1996. And after the end of that project in 2002, based on the experience with the PSMP, the decision was made to institutionalize the reform efforts. And so a comprehensive 10-year vision and strategy document was prepared to continue the transformation journey. A division was created within the Office of the Cabinet responsible to drive the transformation, recognize the need for coordinated approach. A review of that strategy in 2012 confirmed a soundness for the transformation vision and identified new areas of focus for the transformation agenda. So over the years, we have learned that there has to be a holistic approach to transformation. While it's important to address the challenges within the public sector, the best results are to be derived from a whole of government and multi-sectoral approach that takes into consideration our relationships with the private sector as well. As a result, in 2018, there was a concerted effort to focus the transformation and modernization around the achievement of the country's strategic vision. We call it Vision 2030. Dr. Parks mentioned in our schema the importance of having a country vision. And specifically, we focus on national outcomes in the transformation, effective governance, enabling business environment, technology-enabled society, and sustainable urban and rural development. The next slide, Dr. So what do we say? What leads to transformation? Laura, you go too fast, please. Go back 2 slides. Go back. Okay, go. Okay. All right. The next slide, Dr. Park. I'm so sorry. I don't know why I'm not controlling the slide. Okay. So what we have found, what our experience have taught us, while there is no one size that fits all for transformation, as I have shared, the modernization and transformation of the public sector have been first for some time, but we have learned some valuable lessons. I would say we have been successful. I would say we have some success. We have not been a success in all our initiatives, but we have gotten some changes right, and we still have a far way to go. So one of the key lessons we have learned is that transformation and modernization process are continuous. They are continuous. It does not stop. So let's look at what do we think leads to success. Next slide. So we have, based on our experience, we have identified 4 important pillars that are key to successful transformation and modernization. And we keep using that because we have both, we think, are together. Governance, planning, monitoring and evaluation, resources, and stakeholder engagement. Each of these pillars is critical to the process. While these may not be a linear process, without these very important pillars, the success of any transformation initiative will be difficult to achieve. So based on that, in the Cabinet Office, we have adopted a project management approach to project implementation that ensures the inclusion of all these pillars in our program execution. So let's examine these pillars a little bit more. Next slide, Lloyd. Governance. Governance around any program is of critical importance in achieving success. What do we mean by governance? The governance framework established at the outset, it must be established at the outset, and it establishes the critical players and how the project will be managed. Remember, some of you, I was watching your comments in there, lack of a way forward. So good governance requires leadership. Ultimately, the leadership is ultimately accountable for achievement of results, reinforces the need for change in mindset and approach. Lots of you identify that mindset change as a challenge. Mobilize resource and hold public sector leadership accountable. Who provides the leadership for the program? Is it in place, and are they clear on their role? Our experience in Jamaica is that this leadership must come from Cabinet. The Cabinet is an established authority within the government structure, so their buy-in, support, and leadership are critical to moving the ministries, departments, and agencies forward. And particularly, the Prime Minister has head of the Cabinet. Any initiative that have the support of the Cabinet will happen. Otherwise, we will get nowhere fast. Mobilizer. The mobilizer is expected charges and mobilize the entire public sector towards the change. Ensure program alignment with cabinet priorities and hold permanent secretaries accountable for implementation of our transformation initiatives. In our case, the cabinet secretary was the identified mobilizer to unite the entire public sector around achieving the change objectives and hold the permanent secretaries accountable. Direction is another key element of good governance. Directs the change within their portfolio. Ensures that the portfolio reflects all three elements of the transformation agenda, and provides a platform for coordinating the planning and implementation of priority reform. The Board of Permanent Secretaries, we call it the PS Board, provides a platform for coordinating the elements of the transformation, which in many instances, the elements span different ministries. So if the people who are in charge are not on board, are not giving the direction, how successful can you be? There must be a catalyst. The catalyst introduces systems that support public sector-wide change, sets the standard for transformation of the public sector, standard, supports MDA to plan and implement the transformation program. Note the word support. The catalyst for change in our case was the Cabinet Office. We were driving the ministry. We introduced systems to support the change and gave the necessary support to the implementation of the change. We at the Cabinet Office identified a very important aspect to ensure that we get this governance working by applying project management methodology to ensure good governance. One of the things we did in the last 3 years, we trained all our staff in project management, and many of them became PMP certified, as we are fully aware of the experience is important and part of the organization asset. Governance arrangement must be established at all levels. The next pillar for success we saw was the program planning, monitoring, and evaluation. Next slide, Lloyd. We have to do proper planning to ensure we are addressing the real issue. Monitor to ensure we are doing what we plan to do, as well as because what gets monitored gets done. Some of you identified unsure where the vision is for the transformation. This is in the plan. So based on our experience, we have identified some key tenets of the planning and monitoring and evaluation that must be in place. To ensure that the change will actually be executed, we must have program elements embedded in the ministries, departments, and agencies. We call them MDAs, strategic and operational plan. If they don't plan to do it, it will not get done. You will get frustrated. Continuous consultation is a must to maintain the dialogue and allow you to recognize red flags, issues, and concerns early while implementing solution and corrective measures to address these. A lot of you mentioned the changes when Dr. Lloyd asked you, lack of understanding, lack of preparation. It is important to continue to monitor the outcomes rather than the activities to ensure accountability, and you are actually moving towards achieving the target. Sometimes we look at activities and the activities have nothing to do with the targets we are working on. We must, M&E tool, we have found that in our previous transformation, we pay attention to the M&E monitoring evaluation tool for program management, and this is something that we are working on now. Achievable scope. It means we must be realistic in scoping our project, recognizing that what can realistically be attained in the current environment. In the current environment. Transformation in this is desirable, but how will we get there? How do we realistically break down this achievable target? These are crucial considerations at the outset. What resources will you require? You must identify the resources needed for success. Sometimes we have plans and strategies to execute, but have not identified the resource for successful implementation. We must identify the financial human, technical, or other resource required for successful implementation. When you have good governance, we have planning, monitoring, and evaluation systems. You are on a path to success. But do we have the next element? Resource. Next slide, please, Lloyd. Without the resources, transformation is an ideal or a pipe dream. Let me put that up front. It is imperative that the identified resource we talk about in the planning, identify the resource to get the job done is in place, whether it be human or financial. You must have executive management support and dedicated implementers within the organization to drive the transformation. In our experience, when that was missing, the MDAs behaved as if the cabinet office was pushing this on them, which made our job very difficult. My team can attest to that. If you don't have the funds, how are you going to execute? And one of the things that we have to, if the resources are not present, step back and build the precursory steps into your time frame. When we developed the governance at your service in 2002, it was a 10-year strategy. It was expecting there would be a $56 million World Bank loan. That loan never materialized, but we kept pushing and pushing ahead without that resource. So what did we happen? We did not achieve many of the initiatives, many of the targets that were set in that vision. So you have good governance, you have planning, monitoring, and evaluation system, and resourcing in place. Are our stakeholders engaged? The next slide, please, Lloyd. Many of you mentioned, I was watching the chat when you spoke, the biggest challenge, understanding of the change, lack of operation, lack of continuity, unclear objectives. No one entity can achieve successful transformation. We must recognize we cannot do it alone, my colleagues. So we need to know who are our stakeholders. What are their needs as it relates to the transformation program? And importantly, how they will be impacted by the transformation. This requires comprehensive stakeholder analysis, which should inform our actions about how to ensure we keep all our stakeholders engaged. How do we engage them? We have to be consistent effort. We have to make consistent effort to engage them at all levels. We must recognize the different roles each has to play. Who has to be informed, who has to be involved, who has to be satisfied. In the past, we have not, I am going to confess, we have not paid enough attention to employing a robust change management system. Our stakeholders are always going to ask us, they say, what is in it for me? We have to answer that question, my colleagues, to get buy-in from all the players. So I am going to say engage, engage, communicate, communicate. A lot of you mentioned that in their chat, in the response to Lloyd's question about challenges. In the past, something that we forget is the internal stakeholders. The public sector employees are critical to the success of any initiative. Don't PR, you're on the news and they are hearing what is happening in the public sector, but you have not engaged them. So we have examined the 4 pillars, what will happen. So what do you think will happen, colleagues, if any of these pillars are missing? I actually enjoyed the next slide. I actually enjoyed, because it was looking at something that we have worked on. What if? This breaks down, what if? As you can see, missing governance will lead to what? Confusion. I don't know what is the objective of this. I don't know who is to do what. Missing planning, monitoring event will lead to false start, lack of focus on the outcome. We don't know where we're going because we have not planned and we don't know how we're going to get there. Missing resources, we have experienced that many times, leads to frustration and a lack of results. You won't get the results for the politician, everybody, you're not achieving anything. We had that experience in the Vision 20, in the mission in 2002, when we have the MVSP, everybody said, but you're not achieving the SPSP. Resources were not there. But we didn't go back and replan. Lack of stakeholder engagement, what will happen? We get resistance and opposite to change. A lot of you mentioned that challenge. And I think if I was to examine our program to date and the initiatives, I would think we have done the worst there. So, guys, colleagues, if we attempt to shortcut or bypass any of these pillars, the result impact on the transformation program, I will tell you, will be detrimental. Our experience have shown when we do have the governance, we can't engage the right people at the right level. People are working on your project and they behave like they're giving you they're doing you a favor. We have to engage. And every aspect of these 4 pillars are important throughout your journey. So in our years of working, no shortcut. Spend the time to get the pillars right. Next step. I wanted to just highlight, next step, what doesn't work. I was listening to the question Lloyd asked or challenge. In our year of working on the transformation, we have experienced some behaviors that will not work. And I'm going to share them with you. This jointed approach. We have some few that I only care about my project document, what my project document says, so I'm doing nothing more. Nothing more what my project is. Disjointed. Each ministry can't talk with one another. We can't speak to each other and get a collaboration. Unplanned, working in silos. This is driving, it is killing public sector transformation. Unplanned strategies with jumping from A, B, C, D, there is no lack of planning. And one thing, remember, long-term solution. Do not put the solution in for today. What is the long-term goal? It's probably taking up a lot of money. So let's get the best buy-in for what we have. Improper evaluation and lack of situational analysis does not work. It's something that has affected projects. Lack of a clear vision, goal, or objective are significant issues that can impact the success of any transformation program. Or the evaluation of the transformation initiative to date shows that coordination as a body to get things done is very challenging. But colleagues, we must work hard to overcome these challenges or we will not succeed. My experience has shown that the lack of the public sector to collaborate, work with each other, coordinate with each other is a detriment, is a significant hindrance to transformation. Our recently concluded PSEP project is a public sector efficiency project that was funded by the International Development Bank, IDB. Project included many different implementing agencies. And sometimes those behaviors I described earlier were common and affected the project implementation. One of the examples, we're implementing a government-wide ICT system. But I am the project, the behavior is I'm the project manager. And I'm employed to do this work. I don't see why I need to engage eGov, the government ICT entity. That's some of the behavior we had. Another example, we're building capacity, and that the objective was to build capacity of the public sector. And our team members were, but why would I partner with mine, the Government Training Institute to build capacity. They didn't see the long-term vision. They did not see that. Those behaviors will not lead to success. And I took the time to highlight them because I want you to think about them as you go on your journey. So the next slide. So while there is no one size that fits all for transformation, my colleagues, as I have shared, the transformation and modernization of the public sector has been in progress for some time, and over the period we have learned some valuable lessons. One of the key lessons I want you to take away is that transformation and modernization are continuous process. We have been, people say, we have been transforming forever. It doesn't stop. The world changed, systems change, time change, expectations change. So be sure the issues, the challenges are being addressed as you define your project. What are your strategies to address them? And be clear in your mind, what does success look like? I won't say we have been successful in Jamaica in all our initiatives, but we have gotten some changes right. We have a far way to go, and we are continuing. And we have many initiatives ongoing as we speak. But we know we are getting the changes right, and we're continuing at it. We're not giving up. So let's continue the transformation journey, and let's continue the conversation, my colleagues, and learn from each other. This is an excellent way, Lloyd and CARICAD, for us to learn from each other. So as I end this presentation, I believe it is imperative that we all recognize that individually we are agents of transformation. So I will leave you with two questions I want you to think about. What changes would be necessary to support me to better play my role in public sector transformation? What can I do to be more effective in facilitating public sector transformation? Consider these questions. Think about these questions as you go on your journey. Think about it as an individual, not what Marjorie can do, not what my colleague can do. What changes this for me? So I hope from our experience, we have given ideas and consideration for general approaches to transformation and modernization. And from these, not only would the light bulb be turned on, but the passion and commitment, because I am ignited or reignited if you so desire. So the transformation will come from leaders, and we are all leaders. This is a quote by a noted engineer, Edward Deming. So remember, the transformation will come from leaders, and we, Marjorie, everybody, Carly, all of you on this, we are all leaders. So I thank you.
Thank you so much, Marjorie. And I'm sure you'd have been seeing in the chat some of the comments here. So Ione says, thank you so much. Awesome presentation. Simra says, the 4 pillars of transformation, what if? It's a very good synopsis to use to come to the importance of doing the right things the first time around. Yes, that favorite slide of yours, I think she's referring to. I totally concur. Joanne says, I must be willing to make necessary changes to assist the transformation process. It's not only the leadership, but it's all of us. Indeed it is. So, what we are going to invite you guys now, if you have any specific questions, you can place them in the chat. You can quickly raise your hand, and Marjorie and I will, and the rest of us will just engage in a discussion with you around that. Peter says, leadership at the ministry level must be open to buy into the long term. Arlene says, the implementers really so critical to moving action forward. Indeed. So any questions at this time? I see many comments, but any particular questions? Anything jumped out of you like, I see a hand there. Norma, I'm unmuting you. Go ahead, Norma. Hello, Norma. All right, Norma, for some reason it does appear that your microphone, although it appears connected, that we are not hearing you. So you can type that question of yours in the chat, Norma, in the meantime. Marjorie, let me ask you a question. And we talk about we have to be that change we want to see. You know, we have to lead that process. How do you manage yourself as a leader of that division when you find yourself really tested? You know, when you come across like major pockets of resistance and, you know, the confusion and the lack of support that you're experiencing, how do you manage you as a leader in that context, Marjorie?
Boy, you know, it takes a lot. You know, I have come on a journey, and I'm going to tell you, when I started this journey, I felt so unprepared. I felt like I couldn't do this. I'm not there. But it is always looking at self. How can I improve self? And I went on that leadership course, the public sector leadership course, Laurie, and you're aware of that.
Yes.
But I have found that it just sometimes takes, you have to have other things to pull on. You have to not take this work personal. Guys, it's not about me. It's not about me. It is about facilitating change, better for Jamaica land, this rock that I was born on. So I have to sometimes just not take the things personal. Things will come at you. Politicians will do this. PSs will eat your head off. We say in Jamaica, and I remember with a Caribbean, it's not a Jamaican, so we say in Jamaica, nyam your head off. But sometimes you just have to take it. Come again, you know, don't take it personal. Don't take it onto yourself. I don't. And I will vent with my teams. I have some great colleagues that I work with, you know, and I will say, Carleen, Wayne, this, and we, you know, we have a little venting match. But we say, at the end of the day, we say, let's move on. So don't take the work personal. Sometimes focus on what you're doing and why you're doing it. Somebody had to say to me, a colleague said to me one day when I was taking it personal, Marjorie, it's not about you. So those are stuff I have to just cope. And I'm a faith-based person. And let me tell you, I have been going into some meetings that I'm afraid. And I know what's going to happen. And I'm walking into the meeting and I'm praying. I am saying, Lord, put the right word in my mouth. You know, just cover me. And it always works out. And sometimes it's just a bad session. You know, one of the things I've learned, even with the politicians, sometimes I just have to make them talk, you know. Because they like to talk. And they want to sell themselves. But just focus on the work. Don't let it be about your state. Don't take this work personal. It's not about you guys. So that's in a nutshell. You know, I'm passionate about it, so sorry I'm taking so long to answer. But that's my passion.
It's okay. I know one of the things we talk about, it's a quote from the work of Benjamin Zander. And he talks about rule number 6. What is rule number 6? Don't take yourself so seriously.
Yes, I remember that. Yes, I remember that.
Don't take yourself so seriously. Now, Joanne is asking, how do we really get a transformation process started if we have persons who refuse to accept the change needed? There's a question from Joanne from Barbados. How do you respond to that, Marjorie?
Boy, I know, Joanne, I feel your pain and I know the pain because we have experienced it. It's engagement. One of the things that we didn't do right, and I'm going to tell you, is the communication and the change management. And we have learned that in our program, we have now, after so many years, we have on our team a change management expert. And that I think will help is get that formal process in place, because sometimes we think we're talking and we're engaged, but we're not doing it right. I confess. And sometimes you just need that expert guidance. And you have to have that one-on-one with the person. What is it that is preventing that individual? What is it? And I am telling you, and the change management, sometimes we start the change management after the fact, after we're going down the road.
Yeah.
Start it early. that challenge that you have, the stuck, sometimes we just need to get the change management before we start the work. Let's talk about the change and how is it going to affect me. They said one thing I learned in this change management, what is in it for me? Everybody is looking for that. Remember that, guys. That person who is preventing, that we kind of step back and say, what is preventing that person? Have that conversation. The thing is, they are not seeing how it is going to benefit them. And so therefore, we might have to tweak how we are communicating, tweak how we're engaging our stakeholders. I mean, that's all. I don't know if my other colleagues have any other way, because I know they have found that issue.
Oh, definitely. I'm very happy to hear other persons' responses. Marjorie, I would say, in addition to what you have said, I think it is so important to understand two things. If people are just definitely not ready for the change, they are not ready. And sometimes we have to step back and refocus our energy in another direction until people are ready. The change will not happen unless if people are really not ready, they're not ready. A consultant cannot be too far ahead of his or her client. You can't run it on the road and the rest of the people not with you. And sometimes, I know that's hard, but sometimes you have to dial it back.
And you know what we do sometimes? Sorry, Lord. Sometimes we focus on that one individual who is preventing the change. And sometimes we just have to move on without them.
You have to move on without them.
It's not everybody's going to be they have this thing where some people agree right away, some people have to convince, some people have to drag, but you have to recognize. And sometimes we recognize those people who are we have to leave behind. Because if we don't, we get stuck. Because we're trying to convince them, and they don't want to be convinced.
They don't want to be convinced. And Marjorie, you touched on the second point I was going to make, which is, what are your relationships? Why do I say that? And so Marjorie and I, because I work for the government of Jamaica, we work closely together on a number of initiatives over the years. And so what we would have to do is to think, brainstorm, as you were. We never worked in the same division, you know. But if Marjorie was having a stumbling block, she might come to me and say, all right, Lord, I'm having a stumbling block. How can you help me unblock it? Meaning, she leveraged the good professional working relationship that we have in order to circumvent some of these roadblocks. And that is what you have to also do. Not just focus on the stakeholders that are difficult. Who are the ones who are in your corner? How can you leverage those networks in order to create the traction that you need? So I was chief personal officer, So there's something Marjorie could do that I couldn't do. But we work together in the background to make it happen because we're on the same page, and vice versa. There's some things that Marjorie couldn't do, but I could do because I was part of the PS board, so I could bring certain things. You understand? And so you have to be wise, and you have to be strategic in leveraging your stakeholder network. Don't just focus on who is the stumbling block. Focus on who is in your corner and who can help you to move the needle forward. Sean has a question. He says, has there been any perceived change in prioritizing public sector transformation with a change in government regimes? And I think what he means is, you know, yes, so one government might prioritize it, but how do we ensure it is prioritized when there's a change of government? And I think I can say, no, we can't see for every country. Sean is from Jamaica, but I know this is a pertinent question across the various countries that we are from. In Jamaica, despite our challenges, I think we have managed to create this bipartisan agreement on Vision 2030. That's a national vision and strategy for Jamaica. And it came into, the process started under one political party. It got endorsed under another one, but both of them were there endorsing it. And so we've had quite a few changes, maybe about 3 or so changes, Marjorie, of political administration since we established a national vision, but it has remained the consistent national vision. Now, how did we achieve this? I don't want to say I have the bullet for that, you know. How do we manage to get that kind of bipartisanship? I think, again, it has to do with the consultation. And too often we are just simply unwilling to have the consultation across political divides. When in fact, at the end of the day, you know, Don't we all want the same things? At the end of the day, we want our people to be educated. We want to be healthy. We want to address the pandemic. That's not going to change irrespective of who is in charge. And sometimes we need to talk about what are those things that we can definitely agree on, which I assure you, it's much more than 50%.
And our experience have shown that, you know, when you have the project and there's a change in administration, we always, oh, Lord. And it sometimes slows down the project. It does. It slows down the program. But one of the things that we have to recognize, it's just engaging. We have to recognize that I'm a new administration. I want to know what is happening, what has been going on, and why we're doing this. So we have to be patient sometimes and engage them. And what we found, we have to re-engage and you have to share, you have to tell the vision sometime, you know, with the projects and the things that you're in. We have found that eventually they go wrong. If they want to fix, you have to show how this will make them look successful as administrators. And sometimes we think as public, so we must engage and they must just buy it or they must just run with it. And we have found just engage them and what it does, it slows down the project. I am going to it does. But at the end of the day, it might not happen today, but it will happen in a while, tomorrow. So it's the engagement around the political, because we have to recognize what are they in for. They want to know what's happening. It's not just a continuation.
Yeah. No, Marjorie, there are so many questions in the chat, and I don't think we can get to all of them. But I'm going to kind of pull some of the questions together and to ask you this. So somebody's asking, can you identify one of the change initiatives that worked well and what made it so? And in answering that question, also point to some of the other things people talk about that they're asking about, dealing with stakeholders, integrating technology, and what is the role of your particular division, sense of government, that's having that central unit and the competency that you had to have in that unit that would have made this initiative work well?
Okay, I'm just going to pick up, just on the top of my head, I'm going to pick one project, and I'm picking it because the project manager is on the line. We did the electronic business registration system. It was a project that we were working on, a public sector efficiency program that I mentioned, project that was funded by the IDB. And that project, we will say no, that was successfully launched, and we now have online business registration. But that project took us through the myriad of the pillars. Governance was weak at the time. We enhanced it, ensured that it happened. We had a steering committee that was guiding the process, and the steering committee was headed by the CEO of the company's office of Jamaica that was responsible for the business registration process. So we had the governance that place, but the governance kept work. It required work. We had the governance was what drives the process. And Carleen will tell you, Carleen was the project leader at the time, and there were many times that she was pulling out her hair. And in Jamaica, we call that when we're frustrated. But it took engagement. We add to the stakeholder, the engagement. When we talk about planning, monitoring, we had to plan and replan. We had to change a supplier in the middle of, after we started because it wasn't working. Recognize the issue, address the issue. Plan, monitor. So we plan, we monitor, and we go again. And so we had challenges there. We had the stakeholders. How did we get the buy-in of the political directorate and the other people? We had to use, those 4 pillars, we had to be constant on them. But one of the things that we recognize also, what was important, project management, that technical skill. Project management. We had a project manager that was responsible, and internally at the PSTM, at the cabinet office, our project manager with Carly. So that project management is going to guide the process, bring the stakeholder, coordinate everyone. So it was just so important. And at this day, we didn't come in on time. So I'm going to tell you, it had like a year late or year and a half late. But it happened, and it is working. And one of the things that we recognize, it's not complete because we're still doing enhancement to the system. So, but as the Cabinet Office, and Lord mentioned the Central Youth, our job was how do we keep the stakeholders, the Company Office, the Ministry, the Ministry of Finance to fund it, the Ministry of Industry, that was the ministry responsible for the Company Office, how do we keep them engaged? So all we were like the central, the player that's bringing all the parties to the table and to keep them focused and to drive it. So the skills you need to learn how to engage your stakeholders. How do you use real project management? We have to stick to what we call it, agile project management methodology. We have to go learn it because that's what we use for the software development. So as the central unit, you have to be equipped. You have to be engaged. You have to know how to engage your stakeholders, how you communicate, how you get the buy-in. The change management we didn't do early, and I think we did it late, and that's probably what caused some of the problems. But we know we took the effort. We have gone trained all our members in the Cabinet Office on change management. We took them through a change management process because all the projects we're implementing requires change. So they have to understand it and understand how you get the buy-in. And now we have on board a change management expert who is working with the transformation unit to implement a proper, robust change management system in our transformation program. And one of the things that we didn't do well, and we still, is communicate. We didn't communicate our success. And one of the things we are now looking at a more wholesome program in terms of communicate internally in the public sector. We are now engaged in trying to use in the Civil Service Association and all different mediums, because one of the things we recognize, the public sector don't know what is happening. So, that's some of the things. I don't know if I answered all the questions, Lloyd, but that's some of the I wanted to give you that success. And we now have a successful electronic business registration system, thanks to my team, Carly, and and I am not alone. It's my team. It's a team effort we work with.
No, and indeed, you do have an amazing team. And I've had the pleasure of interfacing with them many times. And what I want you guys to get away is that, this is a success, but it doesn't mean it's a success that became easy. It's not an easy road. There are going to be ups and downs and highlights, and you don't give up when things get challenging. But no, I do believe you answered the question, and the role of that central body is, one, you have to always be learning. So those are some of the coordinating, communicating, leading the project management process, leading the change management process, and just monitoring and evaluation to track the progress of the initiative. So, Marjorie, I just want me to just really thank you so very much. We're almost out of time, but this, you saw the comments. People are saying it was excellent. They thoroughly enjoyed it. They're looking forward to getting the recording. And folks, if you want to reach out to Marjorie to get more, pick her brain a little more, and those of our units, our team members, do email us at info@caricad.net or caricad@caricad.net, and we can connect you if you want more information. And so, just for us to let you know that other webinars are coming up, and so look out for the announcements for that. In particular, we are going to be having, apart from this regular webinar series, we're going to have a very special webinar series called Introduction to Leadership. And so if you want to find out more about that, email us at info@caricad.net, and you can look out for the advertisement for that. And do continue to check our various social media pages on Facebook, on Twitter, on LinkedIn, and check our website as well for continuous information on our program and technical assistance offerings. And so once again, I just want to thank you for joining us, and I'm going to invite you now just to complete our end of webinar poll. We'd like to hear from you. We'd like to get your feedback, and so my colleague Raphael will post the poll momentarily. And so we just want to thank you for joining us. Our webinars are always free, so whenever you see our advertisement, do feel free to share it with all and sundry. For us, the more the better. We need to get the word out, especially around public sector transformation. So I wish for you all the best for the rest of today and for the rest of this week. There is a poll now, so you fill that out. And I think many of you will be having a day to as a public holiday starting tomorrow, so do enjoy that holiday. And all the best for those of you who celebrate it. All the best. And so once you finish the poll, you are free to exit the webinar. Thank you all so very much.